Where does the land become the sky? You found it, right? Is it there? No, it's here, isn't it? Just almost imperceptible, but there's still some light from the sky here. But not here. Here it's fully black. Well, mostly. And now we can see the parts where, within the blackness, the land rises and then falls away again to the water. No, you can't. It's not there. It's just black. This painting by Arkhip Kuindzhi caused a sensation when it was first exhibited. It's not even that big, but people were fascinated by the light. In fact, people thought they were seeing artificial light and tried to look behind the canvas to find the light source. The focal point is where? Well, the moon, okay. The river, sure. Right here though, in the central half of the painting, nothing. Just gradations of blackness. Well, it's cloud and land, isn't it? Is it? How do you know? There's no detail to guide you. You have created the scene in your mind. All right, there's plenty of discussion around about the luminosity that Kuindzhi created. So sure, let's start there. The best way to put light into a painting is with darkness. Sounds counterintuitive, but if you think about it, it is the contrast, the massive difference in light value that makes us see how bright the light is. In this case, it is the full luminosity of the moon as it sits against that inky black sky. Then the moon's reflected light on any surfaces that reflect light. The river, the Dnieper, of course, a reflection that throws the moon's light into our eyes, fully in the middle and then tapering off to the sides, being modulated into thin lines as the ripples of the river scatter the light differently as we move back into the darkness on either side. The river flows in a curve. The far banks are not seen, just black, but the curves of the water tell us that they rise above the water as they jut into it. The clouds that are nearer to the moon are brighter against the dark sky. The clouds that are further away taper into almost darkness. The point at which the moon's light barely registers, the point where the moon no longer illuminates the clouds, this point is kind of in our heads. Is it here? Is it here? Is it all the way down here, where the land starts? We decide that point. We understand how light moves in such a scene. We know it eventually peters out. We know the transition is subtle, and it is not the representation in paint that tells us, it's us. We take in the scene, register its components with other scenes we have experienced, and fill in the detail ourselves. What about the houses? How do you know they are houses? Well, it's the windows. The windows that adjust at the right angle to reflect the moon. Take the windows away, are you looking at houses? How would you know? Put the windows back and we see the angles. We see windows whose top and bottom edges follow invisible perspective lines, telling us that there is a wall there, a wall with windows. And if there is a wall there, then there are walls facing us more directly. And the faintest indication of the wall away from the windows, and the faintest idea of a chimney, much less illuminated but still catching some of the moonbeams. Now that we see those houses, we can understand these houses over here. This one with perhaps a candle inside, its two windows facing us and not catching the moonlight, but the chimney is. And if that's a house, then these are more buildings, the smallest glimmer of light on their possibly thatched roofs. Here's some similar houses in evening light, still with dark shadows, but some light from the sun as it goes down. Back to our painting. Here's the windmill, a silhouette against the river. Finally, what's here in front? We can't possibly know, but our brain recognises the scattering of faint light of multiple leaves, and we decide it's probably vegetation. I've taken you on a tour that's deeper than the artist intended, I would say. He didn't want us trying to make out a collection of objects. Rather, he's painting the night. Night on a river. We can feel the chill. We know what it's like to be in the night air. Keep some mystery in your painting, my teacher often says. At first I thought she was being nice, a kind of, I can't tell what it is, but that's okay, you're only learning kind of statement. But no, a painting can become more interesting when we're left to do some of the work ourselves. Otherwise it becomes merely representative, like an illustration or an engineering drawing, where the entire product's aim is to fully show each detail. There's nothing wrong with this, and some artists are so good at this that others give their work what they consider to be the ultimate accolade. It's just like a photograph. Maybe. But where would that leave Monet's water lilies, or his haystacks, or Renoir's boating party, or even Picasso's weeping woman? Engaging our brain and our experiences, not just our eyes, creates a stronger connection. We want to keep looking at it even if we don't know why. It speaks to us, we say, without being exactly sure what it is saying. So a moonlit night on the Dnieper is not just a tour de force of lost edges and implied objects, but rather a contemplation of night itself, of the still time after the day's work, of mending your socks by candlelight, well, maybe in the artist's time, maybe in our time mulling life over a cup of tea, of the endless flow of the river towards the sea, of the things that continue whether or not we are even looking at them, of the quiet time in the evening, of the song of life expressed in gentle ripples we start to hear, or the call of a night bird as the moon shines through parted clouds. And while our brain has been busy filling in the edges, our mind has gone far forward, remembering moonlit nights, that time at the beach when the breeze had gone and the clouds parted and the scene was bathed in moonlight, when we were young, with our friends, in the still of the night. Did the painting evoke more than information about objects for you? Any memories stirred? Leave a comment if you like. If I'd given you more time alone with the painting to experience that, you probably would have clicked off. This is the joy of YouTube from a creator's perspective. I think I fixed the focus hunting my camera was doing in my last few videos. Very annoying, sorry about that. If anyone can suggest a good cheap camera design for 4K video, let me know. Time to upgrade, I think. That's it for now. See you next time on Art Meets Jeff.